Right, so let's see the use of frames and keyframes in Flash. As you can see on the screen, we have a smiley face, and for this face, we have in the timeline different layers. We got a layer for face, eyes, pupil, title, which is a text layer, and the shadow, which is a little shadow on your scene or stage. Now, when you want to lock your layers, you can literally click on the top lock icon, which is here, and it locks all the layers. And then we can just click on the layer which you want to unlock by clicking on its icon. It's highly recommended to keep locking all the layers in your Flash, because otherwise, by mistake, you might move contents here and there without your intentions. So this is the best practice. When you have multiple layers, just click on this top lock. It locks all the layers in your document, and then just unlock the layer which you want to work with. Okay, it doesn't take too long, but this is a good habit you can keep building in when you work with Flash. Right, so now the differences, as we're gonna see here, you can see this timeline. The moment I click in the timeline, that particular placeholder on that frame goes slightly dark blue color. Okay, that means that frame is right now highlighted. Okay, and then once you highlight that particular number frame, as you can see, number 25 is highlighted on title. To use that particular location of the frame, you must physically convert it into three basic concepts of framing in Flash. Okay, the first concept you should know is, if I just right click on that frame slot here, Flash gives me option whether to insert a frame there, insert a keyframe, or insert a blank keyframe. Okay, but normally the most important frame we use when we work with Flash to do animations is the keyframe one. Okay, as a keyframe allows you to draw the objects, to change the positions, to create drawings, and to create animations. Without keyframes, you cannot do any movements in Flash, because to do the movements, you need to specify. If I have a ball here, for example, and I want to move it from right to left, I need to mention two positions for this object. One is the starting and one is the last ending positions. But when you want to specify these ending and starting positions, you must have specifically keyframes within your timeline to mention those two absolute positions of the object. Okay, and if I have the position mentioned, if I just insert a simple frame, as you can see on screen, it will only extend the preview of your last keyframe. It means I won't be able to change the objects from A to B by just adding a simple frame. Frames are only to extend the preview of your last keyframe. Okay? But in terms of solid change of positions and in terms of creating animations, you must insert a keyframe, not just a frame. The blank keyframes, I will come to that once I'll get some specific example. With theory, it's very difficult for me to explain you how blank keyframes work. One, we'll explain you some tasks on the assignments. I'll explain you how blank keyframe works as well. For a while, just understand that keyframe holds any solid position on the stage, any solid drawing on the stage for animations, and just frame, insert frame holds the preview of your last frame, okay, which is an extension. Now, how it works in practical, let's have a look. If I just take an example of this existing graphic which is on the screen, let's say I have this the text. Okay, I'm on the title layer. I'm unlocking my title layer, and if you can see the title, the first number one frame, which has a kind of gray field color in it, and there's a solid black dot. Okay, now that black dot is an indication of this particular slot is a keyframe. Okay, now if I want to see this keyframe for a while up to, let's say, frame number 25 there, then I need to insert either a frame or a keyframe to in order to get the animation. So if I just go there, let's say in the title layer, and on the number 25, right click, and if I just insert frame here, you can see my playhead literally follows as many frames I have in the timeline. Without the frames, the playhead will not move any further. As you can see, I cannot move this red playhead any further because I don't have any more frames beyond that number 25. But the difference in these two now we can see visually. A keyframe which will look like a black dot here, okay, and the frame will look like a little rectangle, a white little rectangle spot. Now this is just a preview to understand visually that in Flash timeline right now at number 25, what you have is a frame, okay, and at number 1 you literally have the keyframe, which is a solid drawing. That's why this solid shape and a hollow shape indicates. Solid dot means there is some drawing for that number 1 on the stage. Okay, but now in order to do any changes in the position of the graphics, for example, I have this text, which is solid dot will tell me it's a keyframe, and when I click on that keyframe, you can see it selects that particular graphic on the stage. But if I go to the number 25, and then I want to move this graphic to some different direction, let's say I want to slide it down in the same stage. So if I slide it down, it should do that change in position at number 25, correct? Because my timeline is right now, my playhead tells me I'm at number 25. If I'll go back to number 1, do you see what happened? It has changed my position at number 1 itself. It hasn't changed the position of the text at number 25. Now that happened because in practice I should be having a keyframe at frame number 25, not just a frame. Okay? If I just have a frame and if I try and change anything here, it will literally change the keyframe's position here. Okay? So that's the difference basic in keyframes and the frames. Now if I want the text on the same layer, it should be at the top in number 1, and it should be somewhere at the bottom at number 25. Then you must change your number 25 slot into a keyframe. Okay, now to do that, I'm gonna go back to my number 25 frame, right click there, and instead of insert frame option which we have used earlier, I will insert a keyframe. Okay, when I use insert keyframe, do you see visual difference in the timeline? Now instead of the black rectangle, a blank rectangle on your stage, you have a black solid dot, which is an indication that it's a keyframe. Always try and visualize these differences. That's why I'm explaining in theory, as well as I'm trying to explain you how visually you can spot whether it's just a normal frame or whether it's a keyframe. Okay. Now with the black dot, it's an indication that it's a keyframe, means now the timeline will allow you to make the change in the text positions. For example, if I go and hold on keyframe number 1, I can move this text at the top of the stage. And if I'll go back to the 25 number, you can see the text has a different position now. Earlier, it wasn't doing that because it was only a frame. So keyframes are very important in order to change the positions for the same object, but at the number of frame locations. Okay. Now, the moment my timeline goes to 25, do you see the other layers like shadow, pupil, and eyes? We don't see them on the stage. Any reason why don't we see them? Because in the timeline at number 25, the playhead will show you only the text. As the other layers, you can see on the screen, they don't have any frame or a keyframe extended up to number 25. That's why if you run this animation, so if you play it, it will show only these other graphics at number 1. The playhead will start moving further. So if I just press enter without control enter, if you just hit enter, That means playing your animation. In ACA, sometimes they ask you to play this animation without testing it. Okay? Because if you want to test, you press Control Enter. Okay? But if you just want to play, then you simply go to timeline. Either you move your playhead forward and backward by holding on it like that, or you just press enter, and you can see that playhead moves till the end. But it only does it once. That's what playing means. Play will only move your timeline once. It will not go back and keep playing again and again. But when you test, the timeline goes in the loop. It goes back to the last and then one, last to one, last to one, and so on. So now in the events, if I want to see the other graphics, like the title is there, but shadow, pupil, eyes, and face, if I want to see them as well, up to number 25, but I don't want to make any change in their positions, they will be there static as it is. Then what would you prefer to add? Would you insert a frame or would you insert a keyframe? Frame? Frame? Frames, because we are not changing the position or directions or any other property of that particular objects. For the text, we're changing its position from top to bottom. But for other graphics, we don't want to change its position. So if I'll go back in the timeline, in shadow and in any other layers, I'm just right clicking and inserting frame. You see, I don't get the black dots because I'm adding a insert frame option there. Insert frame, insert frame. Now if I'll see my timeline forward and backward, all my graphics presents till the 25. You can see visually as well on screen that all the other layers, the last 25 frame shows the blank rectangle icon, which is an indication it's a simple frame, which is only used to extend the preview of your last object. Okay, but the title shows a black dot, means it's a solid keyframe. It must be having some change in the graphic on the stage. Okay, that's the concept. There's no limit on how many frames you can use in the timeline. Flash supports thousands and thousands and thousands of frames worth of animation. Now, if I'll just test this animation, this is how probably it will look. The text will keep jumping like that because what's happening is the playhead goes from 1 to 25 and then it jumps back to 1. That's why this little flicker is happening. But using the same principle, same concept, what I'm going to do is I will keep the text, face, the pupil, sorry, the eyes and the face as it is. Only thing I'm going to change now is by adding keyframes, interval by interval, I will change the pupil positions. Okay, and that will give us the smiley face animation. To do that, look at the screen. I'm going to quickly finish my demonstration by doing this keyframe animation. For right now, I don't want this title to change its position. So this keyframe, if I want to delete it, the best thing is you right click on that solid keyframe and use clear keyframe option. When you clear the keyframe, it will remove its keyframe option and it will make it work as a simple frame then. Okay, there's no shortcut as such, not for clear keyframe, but there are shortcuts to insert frames and keyframes, which I'll explain that. So what I want is now we can see the timeline playhead is moving forward like that, but it is not showing us any change on the stage because as it is moving, there's not a single keyframe ahead which can allow us to make a changes. So I'm gonna go and add keyframes only on the pupil layer. Okay, other layers we're just gonna extend their preview by inserting frames. So to do that, let's go back to the graphics. Let's say I'll go to the pupil layer, frame number 10. Other layers as it is, but on the pupil layer, if I right click, insert keyframe, because I want to change the positions of the pupils on the stage, I get a solid dot present there. that will allow me to change the position of the pupil. So if I just go to the stage, use a move tool or selection tool and simply select your pupil. Oh, sorry, the layer was locked, so I need to unlock it and select the pupil and change its position somewhere there. Select that, change its position here. Okay. Now if I move my playhead backwards and go to the number 1, this is my first position. The moment playhead reaches number 10, the keyframe shows the different position for the pupil. Other layers, there is no keyframe, so they will be there as it is, static. Now if I'll move forward to 20, I want to go to number 20 here. Right click, insert keyframe. So I get another keyframe for the pupil, and I can go and change the position to somewhere else. If it's difficult to move, then zoom your graphic. That will help you to arrange it quite easily. You can use arrows as well, left, right, top and bottom arrows to move. As long as it is selected, we can use keys as well to make movements. Like that. So I've just made 3 changes right now. I'm going to do one more. So we got 20. I'm going to go to number 30, insert keyframe on the pupil there. But now you see the rest of the graphics disappeared because we need to extend them as well. But this time for them, we're just going to insert the frame. Now the shortcut, if you want to insert the frame, is you just click on the placeholder number 30 and you press F5, which is a key on your keyboard, function key number 5. The key shortcuts are here. You can use the menu bar as well. We can go to the insert menu and select the timeline option, and under the timeline we have insert frame option there. So either you right click on the placeholder or you go to the insert menu, timeline and use frame, or the third way to insert this is to insert and hit F5. So F5 is a shortcut or a hotkey to insert a blank frame, sorry, just a frame, and F6 is to insert a keyframe. Okay, so F5 keyframe, F6 for keyframe. Remember this because you're going to use these hotkeys hundreds of times throughout the course and throughout your career. So now number 30, I'm going to go and just hit F5. It will give me the frame here. On this title layer as well, F5. The eyes layer, F5. Face layer, F5. The only thing I'm going to do is at 30th number for the pupil layer, I will just select one by one the pupil and change the position of like that, wherever you want, as cartoonish you want to make it. If I'll zoom out, go back to my stage, just to play my animation, you can either press enter or move the playhead. So if I just want to play it, hit enter, and this is how my graphic will look. Okay, and you want to test it in a loop, then just press Control Enter, and you can get your simple smiley face animation on the stage. Okay. One last thing before I finish this demonstration, there's small difference happening. The moment my timeline reaches number 30, do you see this small flicker happening? That's happening because the moment playhead reaches number 30, look at the screen, the pupil's position is like that, right? But the moment I go to number 1, the pupil's position is totally different. Now because timeline, it jumps from 30 back to number 1, the position of start and end are not matching. That's why it just look bit technical error. But to resolve this, you should add one last frame at number 40, and that position of the pupils you should match exactly with number 1, so that it will give you a smooth animated transition. Now if you want to match it exactly, the best way to do that is just go to that particular number 1 keyframe on pupil layer, highlight the keyframe, right click on it, and simply use copy frames option. Okay, you copy that keyframe which says copy frames, go to number 40 on the same layer, and simply say right click, paste frames. So it exactly copies that keyframe, means it exactly copies all the contents of the stage and pastes it at that particular location. That's it. All the other layers, as a normal practice, just go and hit F5 so that we can see them till the end. F5, 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 save it, and if I'll test it, you get a seamless pupils movement. Okay. With that note, let me stop the recording for a while.